I'm going to disappoint you with this one.
Probably. Hey there, nerds. Jimmy here with Nerd Alert and my faithful sidekick.
James.
And we're here to talk about our top 3 horror movies that involved ghosts, supernatural, possession, sort of the paranormal hodgepodge of everything. So, James, what is your first one up?
Ooh, I'm going to disappoint you with this one.
Probably.
Paranormal Activity, specifically the second one. I remember watching those with you, and you were like, I don't think these are good. And I'm like, I think they're brilliant. I remember the first one being a genuinely brilliant, like cheaply done but well-made film. And the visual tricks they pulled were very impressive. But I was just blown away with the second one that it's like clearly they have a bigger budget. So they use the entire house, and they use the entire house very well. And I love that element of found footage, that it's like the horror doesn't come from the house being haunted. The horror comes from the fact that you can't see everything. And so those restrictive camera angles, to me, make it a lot scarier because while you're focused on the kitchen, you can't see what's going on in, say, the living room or upstairs. So while the kitchen's blowing the hell up, you could have more things happening upstairs that you're not aware of. Or there's something in like the back of the frame that's like, whoa, what is that? And I love how they play with the camera angles and the visual effects to really put together a good haunting.
I will say that series has grown on me, especially as the technology got better and they got more of the security camera, high definition footage going. And it really, and honestly, as we adopted that more in our own house, so, I'd look on to see if anything's going on, then obviously that would pop in my mind. I'm like, I hope I don't see a little something out of the corner of my eye or a little wisp going by. So yeah, that has definitely grown on me. And the funny story about that is the first one, your mommy and I saw that in the movie theaters. And I don't know why. We actually saw it on a double feature with Red with Bruce Willis beforehand. And I don't know why she wanted to go in that. Mommy obviously is not a big fan of horror films, but she chose this. So we go in, we sit down, and I don't know how far we got into it. She's like, I gotta go. I'm like, okay, we'll get up and go. She's like, no. You need to stay and tell me what happens. I'm like, I don't even want to see this movie. What are you talking about? Well, I have to know everything's going to be okay. And I'm like, maybe you don't know how horror films work, but usually not everything's okay, so they can set up a sequel. So I sat in this movie theater, and it was opening weekend, so it was kind of crowded, by myself with mommy down on the ramp that comes up by the seats, going in and out of the theater whenever it got scary or what have you. And I got to report at the end of the day that it was, a horror film and it ended, and there's going to be a sequel for sure. But yeah, that was mommy seeing a horror film in the movie theater.
It's better than the Texas Chainsaw Story, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that was my bad. My bad. For another day. So again, we do this in no particular order. I would say my first one would have to be The Exorcist. Oh. It's just such a simple story based in faith, where one of the whole things about faith is you don't know. So you have to have faith. And when it comes to the devil and possession, yeah, that's believable to me. And when you have the acting prowess that's in that with Ellen Bernstein and Max von Sydow, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is heavy. It's unbelievable when they added on the additional footage that had been deleted originally because they couldn't figure out some of the special effects. But the one where she's climbing down the stairs backwards, like, oh my God, it's just creepy as hell. It's just such a well put together, awesome pacing, just a great suspense movie. And what I enjoy is the second one sucks, but the third one, which kind of picks up the story from the first one with a lot of the same characters with George C. Scott, is also really good. So I got to go with The Exorcist.
I will definitely hear you to that. That film isn't just a good horror film. It's just a well-made film. So many shots in that are so incredibly cinematic for what I would say is no reason, but it was definitely one of the horror films of the 70s that was trying to elevate itself. Whether you see that as good or bad is up to you to decide. But I just remember watching it, and the shot of the two priests,
Yeah.
the one at the top of the stairs looking at the camera, and the one priest looking down the stairs, is like, it's such strong visual storytelling. And the arc of the priest who doubts himself
Yeah.
is just so powerful. And his resolution of intercepting the devil and then being like, oh, no, oh, not today, Satan, and jumping out a window is like, it's just such brilliant storytelling for a horror film. And you wouldn't think of a 70s horror film as being complex, but then you have The Exorcist, and it's just such a good and well-made movie.
And you're right, the visuals, the foreshadowing with that staircase. I mean, it's beautiful, just beautiful. And you really do delve into the madness that Ellen Bernstein's character, as she's trying to take care of her daughter, goes through when nobody believes her except for this man who has lost his faith, and Max von Sydow's character, who's done, like the only priest that's ever done an exorcism before and barely survived. And it's like, man, this is insane. Yeah. And it is. It's if you have not seen it, check it out. It's good stuff.
Very much so. Not to mention the practical effects, as you said. It's very impressive.
So what you got next?
Ooh, for my second one, again, in no particular order, I'm going to have to go with Poltergeist. It's a classic. May not be the scariest thing out there, but it is such a well-made haunting film. And you have the classic, this was built on an Indian gravesite. It's overdone by this point, but it's a classic haunting film. And again, the practical effects are really well done. It is scary how good some of the practical effects look for like what could be seen as a goofy 80s horror movie.
And the actors involved. I love Craig T. Nelson. I know people make fun of him, whatever. He was amazing in Coach, but as the dad in Poltergeist and Poltergeist 2, so good. Poor Heather O'Rourke, she's the little girl. She is just phenomenal in that. This is 1980s. We don't really do green screen, blue screen, CGI stuff. And you believe wholeheartedly that she's seeing and experiencing these things. And then her mom, Jo Beth Williams, we feel the angst and the fear that she's going through as her poor kids are just experiencing these horrific things in their house. And then I got to get her name right. I always forget her name. Zelda Rubinstein as Tangina. She is just like, she enters the frame and you're like, she's creepy as hell, but she's the good guy. And it's like, oh man, her little body, her little voice, just the character she played. It's so perfect.
Carol Ann. It's so much of that film just comes together in such a perfect way. I am impressed with the set they designed or they found. That staircase, for no reason, is the creepiest goddamn thing I've ever seen. Because it's like, why would you build a staircase like that? But there it is. And it has like no plot relevance, but it's just the way the house is constructed is so, how do I put it? It's so brutal to human life. It's like it's hostile to human life. The architecture is hostile in its nature, and it's like that. You wouldn't expect it to, but it really aids the horrific elements of the film. Not to mention the weird intestine door and the actual skeletons in the pool.
I was just going to say, there are a lot of fun facts, also horrific facts associated with the Poltergeist series. Obviously, we all know Heather O'Rourke, who played Carol Ann. She passed away from essentially stomach blockage during the filming of the third one. Terribly sad. Her sister, Dominique Dunn, she passed away in real life. She was murdered by her ex-boyfriend. Now, these are less interesting, but the Native American who's in the second one, he passed away, but he had cancer at the time. And then the old man in the second one also passed away, but I believe he was also some terminal illness that was getting him in that movie too. But there are a lot of like weird facts like that surround this franchise. And then you have, like you said, they found it was cheaper to get real skeletons for the pool scene. So they did, as opposed to make fake ones. And I don't know if Joe Beth Williams, who was the one who ended up in the pool, knew that at the time. But you watch it now and you're like, oh man, that's nasty. I feel bad for her.
Those were alive people once. I mean, even the second and the third films are great. I enjoyed a few of the shots in the second film. Though that one's a little creepier because you have the creepy old fart who
that guy, like we talk about horror villains, and Freddy and Jason and Michael come to mind. That dude, like if you see anybody that resembles anything like that, which you can see in real life, freaks me the fuck out. Because you go back to that and you're like, dude is creepy as shit.
And he's not like the horror villain that'll kill you. He's the horror villain that'll touch you in your no-no square. Yeah. Also, the scorpion shot in that movie is just oh.
What's the scorpion shot?
When he drinks the
worm?
It was a worm. I'm sorry, I thought it was a scorpion. Yeah.
Yeah, that's that. And that's why I also enjoyed the third one. And I don't know if other people feel this way, but I really think it's a pretty good series across the three movies. The remake, it just redid what we already knew, and it had some special effects that were different, but meaning CG. But the third one with Tom Skerritt and the apartment building in New York City, I really dig that storyline too. Now that is definitely a timestamp of late 80s, early 90s, but I enjoyed it.
And the mirrors, the tricks
with
the mirrors is like my favorite piece of that film. Just thinking in my head how they made that work. And they didn't have CG. Well, they did have CG, but it was not powerful enough.
They were still using practical effects. Now, the other fun fact about this is there's always a discrepancy or an argument. Who directed this movie? Now, we all know Tobe Hooper was the one who was officially said to have directed, who was known for Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but there's always been this underlying comment that it was really Steven Spielberg who directed it, and Tobe Hooper was on set. So that's always a little controversy. I'm always curious to learn more. So if you guys know more about it, let us know. But I'm still under the belief that it was Tobe Hooper, because I think there's more of his sense on it. Although, I mean, like George Lucas producing his stuff, you knew it was his stuff. So I think that's where Steven Spielberg came in.
Yeah. All right. What's your second pick?
So my next pick is a American version of a Japanese film. I have never seen the Japanese film. As you know, I don't like reading my movies. So I waited for the American version. It's called The Ring. Now, I am a huge slasher fan. So those are the movies I go to, and those are the ones that I've shared with James and Madison with Allison's approval. I don't believe we've ever seen The Ring together, so I'm not sure you know this one. But the concept is there's a VHS tape that's found. And if you watch it, then the spirit, the ring in it, comes after you. And it's this girl thing with wet sopping hair that comes out of the television and gets you. And then you're found like scared to death, essentially. And the concept and the visuals in that movie are freaky deaky. And I've seen a couple of the sequels, but it's one of those ones where I enjoyed, but I don't necessarily want to keep watching it, because when I close my eyes at night, I'd rather go to sleep than picture some of these things that they visually show you. And it's like, ooh. But it's also a good story, which I think a lot of horror films, they might create a great character, but they don't really have a great story. So then you lose interest. This one, it's really up there where it sticks with you. Like, do I really want to pop in this VHS tape that has writing on it that's not a real thing? Do I want to risk it? I mean, it's similar to saying Beetlejuice or Candyman. It's like, do I want to tempt fate? I'm good. I'm good.
Yes, I have not had the pleasure of seeing The Ring, but as someone who does enjoy things like anime and very fascinated by Shintoism and yokai, that concept is absolutely terrifying. That it's like, hey, this umbrella, it's a haunted spirit. It'll kill you. Hey, this shoe, it'll kill you. This VHS, this dead girl's stuck in it. Have fun. It's And yes, the practical effects and the special effects for it are just, it's not often. I haven't even seen a film, but I will see like clips and stuff and be like, what the hell?
Yeah,
And the
and there's
actress, oh, sorry, go on.
just the quick clip that they show you of the person who died and the frozen fear on their face is like, oh my God, I don't know what they saw that was so horrific. I don't want to see it.
Yeah, and whoever they got to play the thing, the spirit, it's like, I don't know if it's a man or a woman who they had. I think it's
Woman.
a woman. She is like so good with like the
Yeah.
whatever this is. It's like, oh, what the hell is that? And it's
Yeah.
like, no thanks.
Yeah. And it all comes back to the story. And it's just, it's a really good story of who that girl is and what she's about and the mystery of what they find. And it's, again, I haven't seen the original. And we had this sort of influx of Japanese horror movies that were being remade coming to the United States. The Grudge was the other big one. But I enjoyed this one more, and it freaked me out more than The Grudge.
Yeah.
So what do you got next? Your
All
final
right.
pick.
For my final pick, I've been deliberating this for a hot minute, but I'm going to have to go with Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. It is what, 2.5 hours? How long is The Shining?
It seems like it's forever.
It is 2.5 hours of just what the fuck is going on. And it is, I know Stephen King doesn't like the movie, but I'm going to be honest, his book is a little more boring. I've heard from many people across various different friend groups, when they describe it, they're like, he just says something and he's like, trust bro, it's creepy. And it's like, okay, but you can't say the book is better when the movie actually like plays with your head. What I love about The Shining so much is that it's like, you really have to fill in the gaps on your own. You have to decide for yourself what the hell is going on. And I really like the way it's like, are there actually ghosts? Is this all in somebody's head? What the hell is going on? And it's just the inherent horror of being locked in a hotel in the middle of nowhere. What, Utah or something? I don't know. Colorado, the middle of freaking Colorado in snow season. And then just the tacked on horror of dead people, dead grandma, dead kids, blood elevator,
Twins, creepy ass twins.
oh, the creepy ass twins, and like the people, the dude in the bear suit and the butler in the bed, and then all the dead people in the party, and the bartender is like, what the fuck is this? And it's so well done. And I have my issues with what Kubrick did on set, but he put together a creepy ass piece, and it is so well done when you just like sit down and watch it. Also, if you're watching with friends, Jack Nicholson is the funniest motherfucker alive in that film. Like, the faces he makes are just so funny when you're not taking it seriously.
To me, every great horror film needs to have a scene in it that just sticks in your head in a way that's horrific, where you close your eyes, or when you think of that movie, that's what pops to your mind. You're like, God damn, that was creepy. And to me, it's the scene where Jack Nicholson goes into the room and sees a beautiful naked woman taking a bath, and then they start making out, and ew, and then we revealed as this old decrepit dead lady, and you're like, nasty. And that just is like seared into my brain as horrific.
Yeah, what really got me was when shoot, I always forget his name, but the dead caretaker, or the spirit caretaker, what's his face, when he's like, my wife and children got out of hand, so I had to discipline them. And it's like, oh shit, the twins and the woman are the like, you piece it together. It's like he hacked them to death. Like, you see the dead girls, like the cuts between the twins, and then their corpses, and it's like, oh God, he hacked them to death. And then it's like the whole, is Jack Nicholson the caretaker? Was he always the caretaker?
Just to say, who hacked him? Because that picture at the end where he's in the picture, it's like, did he do this? And he's just reliving it. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
And that's where I like to think the hotel itself is a spiritual entity. And everyone has the shining, but not everyone can control it. So
Yeah.
that Jack Nicholson's character has the shining. It's a hereditary trait. So his son is able to control it, but he can't. So the hotel preys upon his weakness and basically infects him with memories of the past so that he was the caretaker at that point in time, but he's being shown a previous caretaker who was also taken over by the hotel and driven mad. And so that last shot is basically the hotel messing with him one last time.
Well, and it's great character development. And I've read a lot of Stephen King books, but I've never read that one. So I don't know what is Stanley Kubrick and wrote for the script and what was Stephen King wrote from the book. But they set up Jack's character as being weak, that he was an alcoholic, and he had at some point hit or had an accident with Danny, his son, and that already showing he's kind of on the weak side. So when he goes to get this job, that he is open to suggestion, essentially, and that's kind of where it goes. It just goes down because he's not very strong in his mind, and it's great character development. I do have a lot of issues with the way Stanley Kubrick filmed that. Poor Shelley Duvall pretty much quit acting because of him. But the end result is hard to pass up, and that it's an amazing story and amazing acting.
Yes, if you remember anything about it, you will remember the performances. And Shelley Duvall's performance, I mean, she was psychologically destroyed on set, but her performance, it's not even performing at that point. And that's just what makes it so much more horrific, is her fear and terror. And just Jack Nicholson being, I mean, Jack Nicholson's Jack Nicholson. He's going to be crazy anyway. But then it's like those two and their acting, or I guess lack of acting thereof, is just really puts it together as this psychological mind fuck of a movie.
Agreed.
All right. What's your last one?
I'm going a little off the beaten path. This movie has fascinated me since the moment I saw it. I believe it was 1998. It's called Fallen. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It stars Denzel Washington, John Goodman, and the scene that just seared in my head. It's not horrific, but it's just the use of the Rolling Stones' "Time Is on My Side" with the character Edgar Reese, played by Elias Koteas, who's a serial killer about to be put to death, and he's singing "Time Is on My Side," and you're like, what is going on? Denzel Washington and John Goodman play cops, who I honestly can't remember if they caught this guy or just involved with this guy. I believe that Denzel Washington's character caught him. But we come to find out he goes to witness the execution, and it's essentially the devil, and that he had possessed the serial killer, and he has like 10 seconds to find a new host once that body dies. So he's zapped, and then the spirit comes out and it infects somebody else. And so murders similar to the way the serial killer had done it before start happening again, and they're investigating. They're like, but we just put him to get death. What the heck? And then the entity starts messing with Denzel Washington, letting him know the rules, letting him know what happened, that he's still around. And this entity doesn't need to wait for the host to die. He can just pass. So there's one scene where Denzel Washington is walking down the sidewalk, and every time the entity touches a new body, it switches. So he's like, doesn't know where it is. Pretty much everybody surrounding Denzel Washington dies. And I don't want to give too much away at the end, but he goes to a very secluded place where there is nothing around, nobody around. And he takes on the entity by himself. And it's like, wow, this is just a fascinating, slow burn suspense, not really your typical scary horror movie, but the psychological aspect of it really gets in your brain. And again, 1998, I've seen it a handful of times, and it sticks with me as just this great story. It's also got James Gandolfini, Donald Sutherland, and Bette Davis. Just a great cast, and a lot of actors you would recognize who are creepy, and they get a part of the entity in them, and you're just like, oh, I recognize that guy. I don't know his name, but he's a creepy actor. I've seen him in other things. You're like, yeah, that's. So I highly recommend, if you haven't seen Fallen, check it out. It's good stuff.
Wow, I was not expecting that at all. I am very excited to watch this now. Just hearing the cast itself, it's like I'm blown away. I'm surprised this got swept under, but I also feel like a lot of 90s movies had like super stacked casts, but got just swept aside.
Well, and the year it came out, you had like Titanic and Good Will Hunting and a whole bunch of other movies that were just like super popular. So a movie about the devil is not necessarily going to make it, but it's just Fallen is just, the concept is stuck with me since the first time I saw it. It's probably influenced several of my stories and scripts, but it's just such a good, well-told story and well put together. And the ending is satisfying. A lot of times you get these movies and you get to the end, you're like, really? Signs is a great one by M. Night. Is like, this movie built all the suspense up, and then aliens are afraid of water, and they came to a planet that's predominantly water. Morons! This sucks. So this one, it hits the landing, and it's good stuff.
That's almost as good as War of the Worlds. Aliens come to a planet where the air actively kills them.
Dirt. Yeah.
That's almost as good as Prometheus.
No, James. Bad.
Oh, no. I'm saying the real horror of Prometheus is the fact that everybody in that movie is so goddamn dumb. That's a talking point for another time now.
I agree. So let us know what you guys think and what your favorite horror, possession, haunting, ghost movie is in the comments below. Nerd out.